Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group. This time with our sponsor and partner, RHF Ninja Warrior Competition. Today is Saturday, May 6, 2023. May is Mental Health Awareness and Asia Pacific Awareness Heritage Month. Our host is Kelley. I'm Sean Clem, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith. Filling in today is Titus in our studio, also a studio engineer. A digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have our partner with us, Darren Jeffrey. He's a founding board member of the RHF and also the original course creator builder for the TV show American Ninja Warrior on NBC. We have Jason Starkey with us too. He's our panelist. The U.S. Army veteran, served in the Infantry Special Forces as a Green Beret with the 3rd Special Forces Group at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and a former board member of RHF and co-founder of Jedburgh, currently serves in the National Guard. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, Sean.
So tell us, how you doing, Jason? What is Jedburgh, Jason? What is that?
Yeah, Sean, Jedburgh is a software company. What it is it's a virtual reality language learning software application, and it's designed to help military linguists improve and retain their language skills. So it's helping military linguists who need to know foreign languages and to learn those languages better, and we're doing it through virtual reality.
So what's the Green Beret doing to design the software?
Yeah, that's a good question. I ask myself that every day. Yeah, Green Berets are usually, we're kind of out in the field, working in austere environments, playing with picks and shovels and bombs and bullets. But the world's changing, Sean, and everyone's realizing that. Our command's realizing that. And so slowly we're embracing new technologies to help the warfighter, and software is what's in the forefront of that.
So how does this software actually work? So it helps people learn languages, or it helps people like translate languages? How does this work?
Well, military linguists, I'll just use a Green Beret as an example. As a Green Beret, one of our core competencies is learning a foreign language. We have to know a foreign language so we can better work with our partner forces in that country. And so when we learn a foreign language, we're not learning it to, order a cappuccino for our upcoming trip to Paris.
Or say that Karen has brown pants on.
Yeah.
Marones pantalones.
We're learning a foreign language so we can help convince people to work for us to carry out a mission, or we want to bypass security at an airport and need to explain to the ticketing official or the immigration and customs official why we have multiple cell phones and all this cash in our suitcase. And so that's what we're doing. So the virtual reality puts the military linguists in this simulated environment that they're going to experience on the job, exposes them to those real-life scenarios that they will encounter overseas, and then prompts them to apply their language skills in those scenarios. So it's very task-focused.
I like that, because that's one of the things that help you really as a soldier, is being able to be in situations, kind of role-play situations, so when they actually happen in real life, you're not taken by surprise. You can make all your mistakes in a training scenario, and then when you get to the real thing, you're better prepared for that. I love that idea. I think that's really good.
That's what we're doing.
So tell us, how did you and Darren connect?
Man, I was fortunate enough to meet Darren a long time ago, I think in 2014, through the Retirement Foundation, when it was just this kind of idea that was bubbling, is when I first met Darren, and that was when we were first kind of building RHF, building the team, and building Rick's Place, the facility at Fort Bragg. That's how we initially linked up.
Wow. And then Darren, so what was your first take when you first met Jason? What was your first take on Jason?
That was easy. This is a guy that is self-driven, has a ton of experience, realized it, early on in his life and started applying himself to life. And, obviously his military career, there's a lot to be spoken of there. But when Jason and I met, he was, that's when he was, ramping up his company and he was, basically transitioned from, his military career to being a business startup entrepreneur, and one of my favorite questions for Jason was, have you ever started a company before? And he said, no. But there was just no hesitation, with what he knew he was going to do. And that is just so inspiring to me, because I'm kind of the same way. When I left my career as a hot shot with the fire service, so I fought a lot of forest fires in the 90s. And then one day I just had an idea that I'd rather start a rock climbing school. A little different than a software company, obviously,
Yeah.
but probably less profitable as well. However, but that was my background, and I wanted to pursue that. And so when I met Jason, it was through this network that we have at RHF. And what's amazing is that woven into both his story and my story is the stories of mentors. And mentors, being a student. My favorite thing is when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And Jason,
what was that? I didn't hear that part. You said when the student is what?
Student is ready, the teacher appears.
There you go.
And Jason was living that, with him taking a risk and starting his business and leaving the military and so on. And so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have him on today, because we wanted to talk about inspiring, members of the audience for the show. If you've got an idea that you want to start a business or start a company, I was wanting Jason to talk a little bit about, some guidance for some members of our audience that might be interested in that.
That's one thing I will admit about people, especially guys in the special forces. One thing I've noticed, which is this cut above. Special forces are definitely cut above the rest of us in the military. You guys have the hardest training. You guys are doing some of the most stressful and most unique situations and tasks that have to get done on a timely basis. You guys are not afraid to jump into stuff. You guys will just go, and that's one thing I think is really critical. You read the books of a lot of successful people. One thing I notice is that they're not afraid of a challenge. They go right into it. They jump into it. Glenda Smith is a perfect example of that. She didn't know anything about radio and just jumped into, created a radio show. Dude knew nothing what she was doing, just jumped into it. And happened to meet people along the way to help her out to get her to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. But basically taking that gumption, how do you find that gumption? How do you find that grit in order to just jump into a task, particularly something that you have no idea if it's going to fail? It could take your life in a whole different direction. Tell me about that, Jason.
Yeah, it's hard. And that's definitely one thing that I think is unique with Special Forces and Green Berets. When we're overseas, we don't have resources. It's just literally 12 men or women that are out there in the middle of nowhere, and we have some job or task to do. And we have to do so much with so little. I remember I built a FOB, a foreign operating base. I was tasked to build a foreign operating base in the middle of Afghanistan. And there's no Walmart, or there's no Home Depot. There's no supply chains that you can rely on. We had some lumber from Russia. We had some good American plywood, and I had some cash, and that was literally all I had. And then through that time, through using these resources and developing these networks that we developed, we're able to kind of build things. And so that's one good thing that SF and the military does well. It teaches people to take risks, to put themselves out there, and to know that you can do something, you can achieve it. And so that's what the military provides. And so that's really what I kind of capitalized on. I knew that. It gave me that confidence that, hey, Jason, you may have never started a business before, but there's this need out there, and just take a risk, jump out there, you're going to figure it out. And so that was one great thing that you can attribute to the military, and I hope other veterans out there or people who are thinking about getting out really appreciate. And that's one thing that they don't, and I didn't appreciate it at first. It took me a long time. Veterans in the military, we have these skills and these attributes that we've developed over the course of our tenure in the military. And everyone tells you, hey, you're really good at organizing, you're really motivated, and they tell this to you over and over again. You're like, all right, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really realize it and appreciate it until you're not in the military anymore, until you're out with, these civilians. And So that's really just one great thing that the military does provide you. And I just hope more veterans kind of realize that, like, hey, you have these skills and these attributes. Like, put them to work. Put them in, build new solutions in industry. And so that's a big challenge for a lot of guys.
Now, did you have any software experience before you started designing this particular software or this company?
Sean, I was the guy on the team who couldn't even turn on his radio.
Wow.
Like, literally, like, I had to go to my 18 Echo, our communications sergeant, and be like, hey, my radio's not working again. And he'd just look at me, you know, with angry and just touch the one button that I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. So, no, I had no software experience at all. I didn't know what I was doing. But, you know, I was lucky enough to find people when I left who did have those software skills, and I've slowly developed those skills myself over time. And so, yeah, no, you can always learn new things.
So how do you, so you talked about you got people, you built a team around you, which I've read a lot of leaders do well. Good leaders will build a team. What I've picked up is that people, if they don't have the expertise in a particular area, they still know what they want to have happen. They have the vision in plan. So what was your vision initially? And then what steps did you have to take in order to try to bring that vision to life?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Initially, I did have this vision. We had this vision for what this digital software solution would look like. In our heads, we conceived it. And the problem with software, I mean, this is kind of maybe unique to software, but what we did is we kind of just built and engineered the solution, ran it to market, and it didn't work very well. It was kind of a flop. And so it was very humbling for the first couple of years. We're like, oh, wow, I thought this would be a great idea. We built this application. We ran it out there, and people aren't using it like we think they are. And so we wasted a lot of time and effort doing that. So that was a big learning challenge for us initially. And so what we learned over the course of that first year of not succeeding was how to build software the right way, more applying the principles of like lean startup, agile design thinking, more iterative ways to build software. And since then is when we've really kind of taken off. So to answer your question, yeah, we were able to kind of like convince ourselves, and I was able to kind of motivate people. Hey guys, like, here's the solution we need to build. Let's go build it. And it worked well, but it wasn't the recipe for success. But fortunately, we've been resilient enough to learn from that and adapt and slowly succeed.
I think that's also a military skill, though, particularly in the special forces, because you don't commit to a decision necessarily. You commit to a decision when you initially make the decision, but when you see that it's not working, you have to adapt and change. And that's one thing that I've noticed in the military in general. That's one thing. I mean, you wake up in the morning with one set of orders, it could be totally different by noon. So I mean, so when you're bringing that to the civilian world, and you're noticing that things aren't necessarily working the way they are, but once things start to work and you start to see things go in the direction that you want them to go in, then how do you innovate and how do you keep building upon that to make more success?
Yeah, it's learning how to make data-driven decisions, and I think that the first important thing to do is kind of write down, like, hey, what are we trying to do? It may seem like a simple, pedantic question, but it's good for you, it's good for the team. Hey guys, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to increase usage each week by 50%, whatever it is. Write down what you want to do. The second thing you want to do is define success. And so, hey guys, in order to achieve our goal, what we're trying to do, we're going to realize success when 50 new people each week log into the application. That's success. So it's quantifiable, it's observable, it's not subject to interpretation. It's defined. And then defining, after that, once you do those two things, then you let time pass and you do a retrospective. Hey guys, did we measure success? Were we successful, were we not? That's the recipe, I think. That's what really helps. It seems small, silly, pedantic, but just being disciplined. And this is where the discipline from the military comes in. Like, hey guys, this is our goal. This is our mission. this is how we're trying to do it, and this is how we're going to measure success. People love that, including myself. It gives us focus. And that's the big theme that I've learned being an entrepreneur is the need to focus and to help your team focus. And so once you do that, you will succeed because you have some base to go from. It's iterative, evidence-based improvements. And once you see that and you can point to the chart, and say, hey, guys, look, we've gotten, this is how we're succeeding. We're iterating. It's working. People love that because it gives us all a sense of confidence and comfort and reassurance that we're not wasting our time. We're doing something, and it's realizing success. So I think it's finding tools, really, to kind of help the team focus. Because without focus, you're going to waste your time, you're going to waste your money, and it's just exhausting otherwise.
I think those are words of wisdom. I mean, the fundamentals of basic leadership was what we kind of just talked about. Darren, what's your take on that? Because you did something very similar too when you left being basically fighting fires in the forest to building sets and then having huge success, finding your way to NBC and working on some of the greatest, reality competition shows that we've seen, out there in television today. How did you make that transition, and how can you corroborate what Jason just talked about?
Sure. It's amazing because there's so many similarities between it, so it almost doesn't matter what your content is. It doesn't matter if you want to start a restaurant or if you want to start a software service or if you want to start a construction company, which is basically what I had done. Even though I started a rock climbing school, kind of like Jason was saying, in 1999 there was a recession going on, and I started a rock climbing school during a recession.
Wow.
Which is like nobody's paying for rock climbing during a recession. So it's like rushing into the market with this one idea and the passion and the drive, and some of the key elements that we've already spoken about was, I brought some people with me. I talked to some people, which translates to creating a team. But back then it was convincing people to come along with me that this rock climbing school in a recession would actually work out. And we flopped in a lot of ways. My initial demographic that I was going after was colleges. I wanted to work with college students and teach them how to climb and use rock climbing as a tool for leadership training. That was one of our core concepts. But we quickly realized that college students don't have any money. So, which is kind of a no-brainer if you just step back and think about it. But we were just we drove ourselves, into the market because we were very passionate about our idea. So the key ingredient was to be a good leader, you also have to be a great teacher. And to be a great teacher, you have to be a great student. And that's why I said earlier, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so even though I was the owner and the CEO of my own company, as small as it was, I had to be teachable every step of the way because every phone call that came in, every person that we worked with, they all shared unique and interesting perspectives on what we were doing. And so it was, and that was a lesson that I had learned, maybe 30 some odd years ago, way before business became on my radar. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And it's literally just that magical, whether you believe, no matter what you believe in, when you open yourself up to being taught, all of a sudden the world just surrounds you and embraces you, and the information comes flowing in. What you need will be there. It doesn't matter if you're doing it right or wrong. What matters, like Jason said, what matters is that even if version 1 is wrong, well, guess what? Version 2 is going to be better, and version 3 is going to be perfect. And that's the attitude. There is no defeat when you're a student. And you know what I mean? And so that's an attitude that I adopted very early on, and I carry with me to this day as far as business and business development goes.
So what I'm hearing is also humility in that, because you have to be willing to learn from your mistakes. A lot of times people are trying to jam a square cube through a circle, through a round hole, and it's not fitting. and they're trying, and
Right.
they're saying it should fit. It's supposed to fit, but it's not fitting. Whatever reason it's not fitting, you got to be able to recognize that and learn from that problem. And learning from your
Exactly.
mistakes is so critical. I think it's so important. So when you were in the military, Jason, what are some of the things that would you say really sets you apart and kind of put you on a entrepreneurial mindset? Did you see do you know a lot of other veterans in your circle that also became business owners or became entrepreneurs? Or did you kind of were you the only person that you were around or that you were in your group that kind of went this direction?
Yeah, I wouldn't. It's definitely not uncommon for guys and gals to get out and start a business. I'm seeing more and more veterans do it. They're calling them vetrepreneurs, and so I think there is a realization that they can build a business once they leave the military, and that's definitely a good thing. I think a lot of guys, in my experience, at least, a lot of guys are still scared. It is scary to do that. I mean, when you're in the military, you know what you got to do. That's one difference between the military and being an entrepreneur. In the military, you know what you need to do. You just show up. You gotta do this task. Like, everything's laid out for you. There's a field menu. Not only tell you what to do, but exactly how to do it. And as long as you follow those directions, you're going to be fine. You're going to succeed. Being an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily know what you need to do. You may have some really good skills and attributes that will amplify that, but it's still scary. And so I'm really when I see guys that are thinking about getting out, they're afraid, and they got a good thing going in the military. They have a great career. They wouldn't mind getting out, but it is scary to them. And so that's what I've seen is there is a reluctance, and I totally empathize with that because it is very scary. And I think more resources need to be out there to kind of help educate them who are thinking about getting out. Like, hey, there's a support network. And that's where things like RHF come into handy, because it's a network of people, other successful people. They have different points of view. There's different backgrounds. They're going different directions with their lives. And just to expose yourself to those people, I think, is the positive thing. And that's one thing that I did do well. I was always trying to go out and do different things. I would travel a lot, although maybe guys who were less willing to start a business, they go up, they show up to the team room, they don't hang out with each other, and that was it. And that's kind of, I think, unfortunate, because the more different points of view that you can see, go to RHF, see someone else who isn't a Green Beret, maybe talk with an officer that you've never spoken with before, or talk with some new guy in the military. They'll open your eyes. And so that's really, I think, the key to it, is just kind of putting yourself out there, getting different perspectives, points of views, go to Rick's place, meet new people, and you're going to learn a lot of new things. And so maybe it comes back to humility in that regard.
I think it goes back to what Darren said. And if you're willing to be a student, then the teacher appears, because if you're going to these types of events, you're learning, you have to be curious enough to go to these events, and curious enough to interact with other people, and have the mindset, the open mind, that I can learn something from somebody just by watching or asking questions or being curious. I can learn something that I can maybe apply to my life or apply to my business. But that curiosity, I think, is key. It's like Darren said, you got to be willing to be a student. You got to be willing to have your ears and eyes open and look for the lessons in life that are all around you. There's all kinds of lessons that you can learn from different things. And without the experiences, if you stay in the corner, kind of keep to yourself, then you're not going to learn much. And you can't be afraid to fall down. You can't be afraid to look like an idiot. And one of the things that I say, if you're doing anything in social media, doing anything in the public, doing anything on radio, TV, whatever, you cannot be afraid to look like an idiot. Because at some point you're going to. You got to be willing to look like an idiot.
Right. Redefine idiot. It's not a problem. And the reality is that I could never have done what I did by myself. Never in a million years. Even if I had the cookbook and the recipe sitting right in front of me, could not have done it psychologically, couldn't have done it by myself. And so so if anybody has an idea and an aspiration, don't try to do it by yourself. Go into your community, support your community, share your idea with your community, and you will become a student. Your community will talk back to you, and if you're open, you'll be guided.
I love that. I love that advice. I think that's great advice. So, Jason, what's the last thing you would say to someone who was thinking about starting a business? How would you encourage them, and what's the first step? And also one question too: do you need money?
Yeah, I guess on the money question, no, you don't need money. You don't. Money's overrated. Money can actually do more harm than good, because the last thing you need as an early stage entrepreneur is to be distracted. And again, it gets back to focus. And when you don't have money, when you have very little money, it forces you to be very efficient with how you spend it and very focused. So I would say you don't need money, and in fact, it can actually do harm. And then, getting back to the question of words of encouragement, it comes back to just trusting yourself. Take that risk. You got to be able to take a risk. Put yourself out there. The worst someone can do is say no. If you ask for help, whatever it is, like you're going to be okay. So take that risk, and then secondly, be open to learning new skills to help you kind of focus and apply your attributes in the marketplace.
Darren Jeffrey, thank you for your time, and also thank you for bringing a great guest. Jason Starkey, U.S. Army veteran, served in the Infantry, Special Forces, and a Green Beret, currently serves in National Guard. Thanks for both of you coming on the show.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.